into this. We're in the middle of a war right now. We are in the middle of a cold cultural civil war in the United States. And you cannot win a war unless you first know that you're in one. This is not a war between black and white, as the media would teach you to believe. It is not a war between man and woman, or gay and straight, or even Democrat and Republican. It is a war between one side, who loves the ideals of this country and the ideals that set this nation into motion, who believes that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator, with certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, who believes that you get ahead in the United States not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contribution, who believe in the American dream, the idea that you get ahead in the United States with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication, and that you are free to speak your mind at every step of the way. Most of us in these countries share our common ideals in common. That is one side of this war. And on the other side, we have a fringe minority that has the current Democrat Party in a chokehold, who believes that your identity is based on your genetics, your race, your gender, your sexual orientation. That if you're black, you're inherently disadvantaged. That if you're white, you're inherently privileged. No matter your economic background or your upbringing, your race, your gender, and your sexuality determine who you are and what you can achieve in life. It believes we must flog ourselves for our success in this country, bending the knee to this new cult of climate change, that we have to stop carbon emissions here in the United States, even as we're perfectly fine shifting those carbon emissions to places like China, who will say that it is racist to defend our own border with our own military, but is perfectly fine sending our own military to defend somebody else's border halfway around the world, who believes in group quotas over meritocracy. You see, these two sides of this war, why is this a war? Because those two worldviews cannot coexist. It's not a choice that you can have a little bit of both. It's either one or the other. You're either pro-American or you're anti-American. That is the choice we face in this moment. This is America's time for choosing once again. And I have some good news for you on this war. I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is, I'm convinced of this from traveling the country. I have been to a majority of states. There's no social media algorithms in the room between us today. There's no TV screens between us. The media will teach you one thing, but put that to one side. What I see when I travel this country is that most of us, 80+% of this country easily, black or white, even Democrat or Republican, 80+% of this country agrees on our shared national values. A majority of us are on the side of standing for the United States of America without apologizing for it. That's the good news. The bad news is that the other side is still winning. And so the question really for us to answer today is why? Here's what happened in our country. First thing that happened is we had a culture of fear that spread across the United States like an epidemic, faster than COVID-19, okay? This spread, the true pandemic in this country and in the modern West was the spread of this culture of fear. Take the likes of Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of the Squad, who famously said a couple of years ago, "We don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice," end quote. Think about that for a second. When your race goes from being about your skin color to being about the content of the ideas you're allowed to espouse, then any disagreement with those ideas automatically makes you a racist, or a climate denier, or a transphobe, or a homophobe. And there is no greater damnation in modern America than to be called a racist or a climate denier. So when given the choice between pledging allegiance to this new religion and being tarred with that scarlet R, everyday Americans are choosing to bend the knee. And that is what has created this new culture of fear in our country. Fear of losing your job. Fear of your kids getting a bad grade in school. Fear of becoming an outcast in your own community. And that culture of fear has displaced our culture of free speech in the United States of America. You want to know the best measure of our country's health? Is it the number of green pieces of paper in our bank accounts? That's important, but it's not the most important thing. Is it the number of ballots we cast every November? That's just the final act at the end of the process. The best measure of the health of our constitutional republic is the percentage of people who feel free to say what they actually think in public. That's the truth. Right now we are doing poorly. The only way we're going to do better is all of us, not just me, all of us starting to speak openly again. But that's the first reason why the other side is winning.